My people, what is up? I'm Taylor. This is the Lioneye podcast where we share life philosophies and mental models to keep our days pumping. And today I want to talk to you about expectations. Expectations are so prevalent everywhere in life, and we're all guilty of falling to them emotionally. And I think there's a good framework to think about it so that we can be best prepared as we navigate adult life. So today I'm going to say expect nothing and flow with the bull. Now, I'd argue we even have expectations of things we aren't even aware of, and I'll get into that. Expectations go all the way back to our childhoods, right? I was that kid that got really excited whenever we had plans to do a big event or see my friends or even just have a free night to play video games or just do something that I really wanted to do. I remember when I was young, we used to go to the beach on July 4th and we would go to the fireworks stand and I would get my own little bag of fireworks and I got to choose them. And I was so excited to get down to the beach and be able to shoot off the ones that I picked. Man, if that night didn't happen, I would be so crushed. So many events when we're young are emotionally charged. And yeah, whenever those plans changed, there was some grief and loss with it. And those feelings usually scaled with how significant the event was. And I think for a lot of us, I know for me, this carried on for a good chunk of my life, pretty much through college and really for a period of time after college. And eventually, I realized I was putting too much weight in the things I was excited for. And all of these things were external to myself. I have no control over them. Why am I getting thrashed around by things I have no control over? So naturally, I needed to reduce my expectations. And initially, when I started doing this, right, I started cutting out unreliable people and things to protect myself and prevent that pain. And I think in some ways it was healthy, and it was healthy to cut out the people and things that were unreliable. But I also cut off so many things that I ended up overcorrecting to being quite alone. And I ended up thinking I was a Sigma male, but that's a different episode. Definitely not a Sigma male. I don't know if anybody is, but I'll talk about that at some time. So let's fast forward to today, adult life. In adult life, things come up and things change all the time, and typically for really good reasons. So it's even more important that we don't get thrashed around. So we need a way to mitigate these expectations. And I think a great analogy to talk about this is to think about adult life and expectations like riding a bull. Okay? Stay with me. The bull is life, and expectations are every movement the bull does. So sometimes the bull does small jolts, sometimes there's huge thrashes. We have no idea what in the hell this bull is going to do. This bull is trying to fuck us. And so we need to prevent ourselves from getting fucked. And you better believe life is trying to fuck you. Now, I've personally never rode a bull before, but I'm sure, like me, you've seen videos of amateurs getting thrown off on the mechanical ones or a real one. Sometimes they get run over by the bull and you're like, holy fuck, did they just break some bones? I mean, it's nuts. Now, what is the technique professionals use to prevent themselves from being thrown off? I didn't look this up, so I don't actually know the technique, but I think we can reasonably infer one of the key things is that they stay relaxed and they flow with the bull, right? You keep as much of your upper body weight as possible centered, and you let your lower body and hips flow with the bull's movements, right? You're flowing with it. You're just letting it happen. Your hips are relaxed and you're just flowing around with it. Now, you might get really pulled in one direction, but the body weight that you have center will create counterforce to bring your stability back into balance. Okay, so I'll get into like how that kind of relates to life. So again, every movement of the bull is an expectation. And you might not think about it, but expectations are happening all the time. Think about this. Expectations are happening when you wake up in the morning and you're trying to find your sock. When you are getting the coffee that you want or the tea that you want in the morning. There's an expectation if your kids spilled milk on their shirt before yearbook picture day, or not getting cut off in traffic on the way to work. If you have any sort of reaction to any of these things happening or not happening, right? If you can't find your sock, maybe you get a little like, fuck, where's my sock? If you have any sort of reaction, I'd argue it's an expectation, right? You expected an outcome that happened that would not happen. If you didn't have expectations, you wouldn't feel anything when you got cut off in traffic. You'd think, oh, that happens. Maybe they're running late for something really important, or they didn't see me. No, I think a lot of people are guilty of thinking, oh, rude. Like you should have seen me. You should have been aware enough to see that I was next to you, or that my car was far enough along where when you merged, you cut me off. So you're having an expectation from every driver in society, right? Now, this doesn't mean you don't feel something if you do get cut off in traffic, or you don't gear up in excitement for a concert or a dinner party or some event that you have later in the evening. Of course, we feel things. We're human. Just as an example, I'm single right now and dating. And as I was writing this episode, I received a message from a date that she has to cancel our dinner plans for tonight. And I was pretty excited. It's a second date. She's a beautiful woman. She's got a cool personality. She leaves tomorrow to go out of town for a couple weeks. And she said she wants to connect when she gets back. But in my experience with scenarios like this, you typically never hear from them again. So it's possible we'll connect when she gets back. I mean, we could have having a serious relationship and getting married. You never know. The point is that you don't know. And in many situations and circumstances in life, we don't know. And that's okay. We have to surrender to what happens. We got to move our hips with the way the bowl's flowing. You see what I'm saying? So I hope I see her again. But if I don't, that's okay. The bowl bucked one direction, life bucked one direction. I'm keeping the upper part of my body centered, right? I'm keeping my heart centered. Wow, that's a good relation. I didn't think about that until just now. So keep your upper body centered, right? And my hips for that date, oh, they were flowing with whatever happened. She said she's busy. That's okay. And life has a funny way of making that bowl as crazy and volatile as possible, right? Just when you think it's some shallow movements, you're going to get absolutely thrashed. And after you get thrashed, you might get thrashed even harder. But then maybe you'll go back to some shallow jolts, but then go back to thrashing. And then maybe you'll have shallow jolts for a few weeks, you know? So I'm going to say something odd, but then I'll explain it. You even have to release your expectations of having no expectations. Now, Taylor, what the fuck does that mean? Well, like I talked about before, right? We're all human. Emotion's going to come up, and sometimes it's virtually impossible to not feel something. And if you feel a little something and then you immediately get thrashed even harder, you can easily start down a rabbit hole of emotional intensity. You truly have to surrender yourself. So releasing your expectations of having no expectations really means you need to expect anything. And I know people have probably heard that before, but really internalize expecting anything. Because if you expect anything, nothing is surprising. Now, it can sound like a little cynical and pessimistic to take that stance, but that's a whole different episode to talk about why it's not cynicism or pessimism, right? To me, expecting anything is truly expecting anything is truly accepting that we live in an external reality and all we can control is ourselves and how we process. So the best way to keep ourselves stable is to realize that anything can happen because it can, and it will. Murphy's Law, everyone knows it, and that's okay. Life is a story unfolding before our eyes. Loosen those hips, ride that bowl, just ride it all around town, okay? I want to be really clear. I'm not saying to detach from emotion or that expecting anything removes the emotion. We're human. Those emotions are going to be there, and it's honestly a beautiful thing. I remember the deepest parts of a new relationship with someone that I was falling in love with. Holy fuck, I want those feelings. Those are such good feelings. You're also going to have those negative feelings, but those negative feelings are okay. I've gotten teary-eyed from so many movie scenes in my life, let alone real circumstances, and those movies aren't even real. So the difference between expectations and expecting anything is your control over your life experience and the experiences of your emotions. You let that feeling wash over you and move your weight with it, just like you move your weight with the bull. Just let it be. Surrender to the feeling, surrender to your experience, let it flow. In that, we're in control because we're deeply present with reality and deeply present with our body and our feelings. We don't lose our faculty as we navigate those tough experiences. And in my experience, when you truly feel your feelings and stay present, they pass through quite quickly. They really do. I encourage you to try it if you haven't. I didn't even know this until a couple years ago when I went through some therapy. And really feel your feelings, and they pass through you very quickly. And once you grieve and get through that experience, keep pumping. My people, what are some expectations you've had lately that you need to let go of? What are some expectations you have today that you're going to let flow through you and ride those hips around? I want to hear about it. Put it in the comments below, and let's get our day pumping. Let's fucking go, guys. I'll see you next time.